Well, hello there, Learn, Play, Connect member. This is Craig Haynes speaking, and I want to talk to you on this video what math college-bound STEM students need to know. Now, this is something that, if you're thinking of, if you have a student thinking of studying science or engineering or technology at some pretty good school, then what do you need to know? And I'm going to tell you what you need to know today, and it'll probably be kind of surprising to you. Now, as I told you, this is Craig Haynes, and if you go to my website, you'll be able to learn all about me. And in fact, I have a short video there on the 5 essential ingredients in learning math I invite you to watch at my website. And then there's a lot of other information on my website all about me and other things that we're doing. And then today in particular, though, we're going to be talking about STEM math. Now, there's a website that I would recommend that you go to called STEM Math Made Easy. This is a not-for-profit corporation, and we have a lot of things going on there. One of the things that we're developing today is something we call STEM Math Academy. Now, at STEM Math Academy, this is designed for students that really are going to study STEM and want to learn all about it. And in order to get an idea of what you need to know, we have something we call the STEM Math Quiz. So if you click on that, you'll come, it's a 12-question quiz. Now, this is something that is quite interesting, I think. There are 12 questions on here, and if you can answer these 12 questions in 1 hour or less, then you are most definitely ready for MIT or any other really good school where you're going to study science and engineering. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. Most of these questions are very, very difficult using just manual tools that you might have learned in your math program. Virtually all of these require a very special tool in order to solve them, and that's what modern STEM professionals and students do. They learn to use modern tools. Now, the modern tool that I'm going to recommend that you use and that I teach you in my program is called Wolfram Alpha. Now, Wolfram Alpha is something that you can learn all about if you go to another website. This is a product that we have developed called the Supercomputer, and it's based on the Raspberry Pi, and you can go look about it and see it in action. But what's really important about it, and by the way, just so you know, this costs less than $200. So now you have to plug it in then to any kind of a monitor you want through an HDMI cable, any kind of a keyboard you want to use, and so forth. And you can learn all about it. But what's on this is tools called Mathematica and Wolfram Alpha and Wolfram Language. And these, quite frankly, are the tools that you're going to use as you learn STEM. Now, if you want to know what you should learn in terms of mathematics, you can go to a school we have called Homeschooler Today, and this is where we have designed and present an online math curriculum that's quite cost-effective, and we recommend it for any children really that are post-elementary. But in particular, if you're interested in STEM, then you're going to want to study the math curriculum that we teach, and you're going to probably want to use the supercomputer as your learning tool. There's other things there too as well, but that's the main thing you're going to learn. Now, the math curriculum is something that if you click on that, you go there and look at it, and it shows you, first of all, how you can sign up for it, but it shows you the various tiers. Now, we have actually 6 tiers. I've only put 5 of them on this page, and it also shows you the high school credit equivalency if you're doing homeschooling. Now, I will tell you, you're not going to get this in any traditional high school. This is going to be quite unique to anything that any high school I know about teaches. And we have Margie Abbott works with us in homeschooling. She's a great homeschooling person with lots of background and so on. And you might say, well, just exactly what is it that my student needs to learn? So if you go to Craig Haynes, my website, and go down here and click on Tier 1 through 6 Math Syllabi, you'll get a PDF. And your PDF then that you get will show you actually what we teach. Now, I'm going to run through this quickly for you so you'll see. First of all, the very first thing we teach any beginning student, and we can start this as early as like age 10, 11, or 12, how to use a scientific calculator. Because in this day and age, you're going to use some kind of a tool to do your arithmetic. You're not going to do it with pencil and paper. You need to understand the concepts for sure, but you're going to do the actual calculations with a tool. Now, and as a matter of fact, many of the arithmetic calculations you have to do, there are no manual techniques that are really practical anyway. Now, this is a pretty amazing thing. There's only 16 lessons, and we use the TI-30XA calculator to teach this on. And once you learn that, you can then apply that and probably then use any scientific calculator you want to. But this is a wonderful little $10 calculator you can buy, and it's a wonderful calculator. Then we have, and this is what we call Tier 1, we also have what we call pre-algebra. Now that's just making sure that your student understands all of the rules of arithmetic that they should have learned in their elementary school training by now, but this is a good review of it, and if they don't know it, they'll learn it. And the way this works, by the way, every one of these lessons has a pre-quiz and then a video. And this, for example, the number line and negative numbers is an 8-minute video. Rules of addition is a 10-minute video. You see the number of minutes. Each one of these is a video. After they study the video, they are given exercises to do. And they come in a PDF document that you can print out. They do the exercises. Of course, the answers are provided so they can check themselves. And once they feel they understand the topic that's under discussion, let's say the number line and negative numbers in this case, then they take a post-quiz. It's a 3-question quiz. They got to get them all right to move on. And once they do that, they move on to the very next topic. Because learning math is like climbing a ladder. You want to learn it one step at a time. You don't want to skip things. So you wouldn't want to be down here studying some of these later lessons if you didn't understand these first ones. Now that's Tier 1. Tier 2 then, we start for the very first time to teach the student algebra that they're going to need for practical mathematics. And there's only 8 lessons you'll see here. It's pretty amazing. If you knew these 8 lessons in algebra, if you knew these things right here, you would know more algebra than most people do, and you'd be prepared now for practical mathematics, the military, tech school, things of that nature. Then you need some geometry. And geometry, by the way, I guess there's 10 lessons altogether in the algebra. Now, geometry is, and I should know, I did them all, but geometry is 19 lessons. Now, this is not the geometry that you would be taught in a normal high school course. We're not proving theorems here. We're not doing any theory. We're strictly learning practical math that you would use in almost any technical field you'll ever go into. And there's 19 lessons of it, and it's basically teaching you how long should something be, what should be the area, what should be the volume. And we're dealing with the basic shapes of geometry, triangles and squares and rhombuses and circles and things of that nature. And then in 3 dimensions, we get into cones and cylinders and spheres. Now, in practical math, you also have to deal with angles. And trigonometry is a subject for doing that. And so we have actually 7 lessons in trigonometry, teach you all the practical trig you need for practical things. Now, people are amazed. This whole program, this Tier 1 and Tier 2, and by the way, we sometimes we've put that into and we've added a few special topics to what we call workforce math, which you can go look at sometime. But we're talking about STEM today, so this is what we would put the student through. Now, if your student, the next thing your student has to do is get ready for the SAT and the ACT. These are standardized tests that you need to do well on to get into a college today, and the better you do, the better. Now, at this point in time, we use a wonderful book by George Simmons called Pre-Calculus Mathematics in a Nutshell, and you can learn all about it on my website. It's about a $15 book that you buy at Amazon, and right away we start teaching you things out of it that you need for the SAT. And so you can look and see these topics here. And then we have some things that are not in the Simmons book that you need for the SAT, and we use custom notes for those. But all of these, every one of these is a video with exercises and quizzes. So your student is climbing the ladder. Then in part 3, we actually go through an SAT test and do sample problems and test preparation, test taking techniques, and so on. And this is getting you ready for the SAT. Now, we also have a supplementary set of videos on the ACT that go along with this, but it turns out for the ACT, you actually need a little more math, and we tell you what that is. Now, what happens is after you are prepared for the SAT and the ACT, and let's say you're prepared, you do perfect scores on them, you still don't even begin to know enough math to go to MIT. You need now a lot more math to get ready for STEM, and this is where now we're really getting into what you need for STEM. And so in Tier 4, we have 66 lessons. We call them pre-calculus, and we start out with Dr. Simmons' great book, and we talk about geometry at a much deeper level using Dr. Simmons' book. And this is a wonderful set of lessons. Now we don't prove theorems formally, but we begin to do arguments to make sure you understand why. Why is a Pythagorean theorem true? How can we demonstrate that that's true, for example, and things of that nature. And this goes right on down through a whole lot of things that you need for geometry. We have some interludes, and I won't get into those. Those teach you things. Then we do algebra. Now, algebra is a lot of students really struggle when they first go through algebra. The way it's taught today in your typical high school is really horrible. Big, thick books. This is going to be 15 lessons, but here's what we do that's really amazing. In lesson 5, we introduce this wonderful tool called Wolfram Alpha. Now, you'll learn about that when you study the supercomputer and that sort of thing. But Wolfram Alpha is a tool that was introduced to the world in 2009, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And it just makes the learning of mathematics so much easier, and then it makes solving the problems so much easier. It does them for you, and it also then, if you want to learn the manual techniques, it has a step-by-step solution guide for you. So it's like a tutor as well. Then we do trigonometry. Once again, we're using Dr. Simmons' book, and it's a wonderful thing. You have to learn all things about trigonometry. Now, once you've learned some basic trig, which we teach then we teach you complex numbers. Now, this is something that's not done in any high school today, to my knowledge. And if you're going to go into STEM today, you really need to understand the complex number system. You go look at our other video and Learn, Play, Connect about the number systems, and this is the top one of the chain. After the real numbers, you have to learn complex numbers. Now, the wonderful thing about complex numbers is they're really easy to understand if they're taught properly. The Euler identity is the key to it, but you have to understand trig, because this is all tied up with trigonometry. In fact, I would argue that I didn't feel I understood trigonometry really as well as I needed to until I learned about complex numbers. Then we have special topics in algebra that we cover, and some of these come out of Dr. Simmons' book again. And then we have, for math majors and teachers, we have some things that you don't need for STEM, but they're very, very interesting. And so you can go on and study those if you are just interested in math in general. Now, in Tier 5, we begin to do calculus. Now, calculus is the way you analyze functions. Functions are the building blocks of all modern STEM math, whether it's engineering or science or any other application of math. And differential calculus is the way you study functions. Now, once again, the old manual way of doing it was very difficult, but Wolfram Alpha makes it much, much, much easier. Now, we teach you the manual techniques because they're easy to learn, and you may want to know about what they are and how it works. So differential calculus is really where you learn the concepts of calculus and how to use differential calculus. Now, integral calculus is what flunks more kids out of engineering school than anything else, because what happens is you have to apply the fundamental theorem of calculus, and it is very, very difficult to do manually, and that is called techniques of integration. And once again, we show you how to use Wolfram Alpha to do this. Calculus today, everything you need to know about calculus you can learn, most students, in one semester. Now, the workhorse of STEM math are differential equations. Normally, that's not taught ever at the high school level, but it should be. You usually don't get that until you get into your college. Maybe you might get it the first year. Often it's the second year. But once again, it's a very difficult subject to learn manually. But if you use the modern tool of Wolfram Alpha, it's very easy to learn and to apply. And this is what all modern professionals do. Modern professionals apply the powerful tools that you need to do this. And so this is what we teach, and this is what your students should learn in high school, getting ready for the modern STEM studies. So that is the basic idea of the things you need to know. Now, if you'll go to these websites and study them, go to the supercomputer website, take the STEM Math Challenge I told you about. You can get it there. It's the one I told you about over here. And you'll see right away how hard math is if you haven't learned it properly, and if you don't have the right tool. And then also you'll be learning about the not only when you study the supercomputer, you're also going to be learning about the brand new tool that was developed called Wolfram Language. Now, Wolfram Language is a very modern tool for applying the most powerful language of all time called Mathematica to solving problems. And I have other places other videos where I talk about Mathematica and Wolfram Alpha and Wolfram Language, and you'll need to watch one of those videos to get a more in-depth understanding. But the bottom line of it is, Mathematica was introduced to the world in 1988 by Stephen Wolfram. It has revolutionized the modern world. The World Wide Web was developed with Mathematica. The iPhone Siri wouldn't exist. Siri is based on Wolfram Alpha, which came out in 2009. Wolfram Alpha is a Mathematica program. Now, to write programs today, Wolfram Language makes it very easy to write powerful programs, and that's the first programming language that I recommend we teach our students, and we can start them in it very young. A student can start learning Wolfram language very early on, even as early as, very early in their studies. Now, the facts of the matter are, if you go through our program, this math curriculum I talked to you about, and I described to you, you can do a student, if they start out when they are, let's say, 12 years old, and they're not to be a genius, just reasonably gifted, have a reasonable aptitude, and they like math, you can go through this entire program by the time they're 15 or 16. You can be better prepared for MIT at age 16 or 17 if you studied this than you can with any of the standard math curriculums. And the nice thing about it is, it's relatively inexpensive. The only book you're going to use in this is George Simmons' book, which is $15. Everything else is notes, because the books, frankly, every calculus book today is effectively obsolete because it teaches the old manual techniques that are obsolete. It'd be like trying to teach you how to use logarithms and slide rules to do arithmetic. That went obsolete 40 years ago when scientific calculators came out. Well, today, you've got Mathematica. Now, I've taken you through this real fast, and if you don't know much math, you're probably a little bit confused. You'll have to probably watch this video 2 or 3 times. But the good news is, if you go to these websites and if you'll spend a few hours at Homeschooler Today and watching some of the videos and studying it and a few hours at Supercomputer and learning about it, you're going to learn what you need to know as a parent, for example, to help your student do the right thing. And of course, as a member of Learn, Play, Connect, we have weekly opportunities for you to come and ask me questions. So Learn, Play, Connect, as you know, you're a member now. It's free, lots of benefits. In fact, what you're watching right now is this video right here. Math college-bound STEM students need to know what math they need to know. That's what you're watching right now. And there's lots of other free videos. In fact, if you go down to and look at our Math Resources Den, there's all kinds of stuff there. In fact, I actually teach you there how to use a scientific calculator. There's lessons on it. Now, it's not our full-blown program. We don't have the quizzes and the exercises, but at least there's the videos on it that show you, and that's free. And of course, if you have elementary children, Uncle Jack elementary videos are a must for everybody. This is what my Uncle Jack is the reason that I got a head start on my classmates. I'm not a genius. I'm not particularly bright. There's a lot of my students are brighter than I am. But because I had some great teachers, starting with Uncle Jack, I was able to learn math and overcome the barriers that every student faces. And I faced them too. I almost got derailed more than once in math. And my great teachers, then I was lucky I had some great teachers and they got me over it. Well, I want to help you and your student be your great teacher to get you through it. I can give you virtually everything and even more than all of my great teachers gave me, thanks to them, of course. So this is really just building on their shoulders. It's passing it on, as it were. I can't go back, and all of my great teachers, in fact, are now gone. They've passed on. They're up in heaven now, looking down, hopefully, but and seeing what's happening. But this is amplifying what they've done for me. So anyway, this is Craig Hain. My students call me Dr. Dell, and my friends call me Craig. So feel free to come and ask questions on our Facebook Live things that we do, where I won't say every week, but very often I'm on Facebook Live answering questions, talking to people about applying math to all sorts of things. Math applies to virtually everything in life, not just STEM. And you don't have to learn all the STEM math to use math. If you go to workforce math, let me run to that real quick. I didn't have that open. But if you go to workforce math, this is actually what we recommend to workforce math. This is what I recommend to students that are not going to go to college. Go to workforce math. This is essentially tiers 1 and 2 with some extra special topics thrown in that would benefit you in the workforce. And if you have a student that's not going to college, going into STEM, have them go look at this. This will be tiers 1 and 2. And by the way, what happens when a lot of students, once they go through this, which is tiers 1 and 2 and some extra, then they get confidence in math. Well, maybe I can go on in engineering. And then maybe they do want to pursue a STEM career. So this is really kind of where we start all students with practical math. So this is Craig Hain, Dr. Dell. I hope that you've enjoyed this and learned a lot from it. And I hope to communicate with you in a variety of ways in the future. And most importantly, I hope that you deliver your student the very best optimal math education for them. That's what we're all about. That's why we're doing what we're doing. We care about your student, and we want your student to excel. And by the way, almost all students today have the ability to learn math when it's taught properly. And even the ones that are afraid of it and don't like it, once it's taught to them properly, starting with the calculator, they do well with it. And so I want to encourage you to tell them about that and let them get started. Just try and start them on the calculator. And once they do that and say, well, I can do that, well, then you can learn math. In fact, if you can play any kind of a complicated game or sport, you can learn math. Math is like a sport, by the way. We treat it like a sport. Math is very much like a sport. It's very kinesthetic. You got to do it. You got to practice it. You got to make a lot of mistakes, and you learn from your mistakes, and you come back and keep on going, and you enjoy it. Math is fun for some people, for me, but it's enjoyable because you're doing something creative. So once again, Dr. Dell.